One of the most frustrating things about working with people in a fitness coaching environment is that they don't check in, or they start by checking in and then after a few weeks they stop checking in. And what this means for you as a coach is that you can't coach them properly, because if you don't know what they're doing and the problems they're having, how can you possibly give them advice on what to do next? And it can be incredibly annoying when clients are saying to you, oh, what do we do next? Or has my diet changed this week? And you're like, oh, well, I don't know, because you haven't told me all the things I need you to tell me in order to adjust your plan for you. Now, you might be watching this thinking, yes, I 100% agree with that. It's very frustrating when people don't check in. However, we do need to sometimes have a look at our methods to make sure that we are making it easy for our clients to check in. Sometimes, unfortunately, we've got to take a bit of a slap and think, maybe it's down to me as the coach as to why they haven't checked in. And while you're thinking about that, hi, I'm Tom. I'm the bodybuilding business mentor. I make these videos to help online fitness coaches and gym owners to not make the mistakes that I've made in the past while building my own businesses. So let's get into today's video, which is all about making sure that clients check in with us on time and when we want to, and they give us the information that we need to be able to make sure we can coach them properly. Over the last 20 years or so, I've coached a variety of different clients, competitive bodybuilding clients, women looking to just lose weight, men over 30. I've had a number of different niches. And a problem you'll get as a coach is that you want as much information as you possibly can get from this person, because that helps you make a better decision. However, when you look at it from the client's perspective, they've got a million things to do in their day, and they've also hired you as a coach to help them solve all these other problems they've got, which they can't solve themselves. And now you want them to check in every week, so you've just handed them another potential problem. And if that problem is going to take them more than 5 to 10 minutes to do each week, I'm sorry to say that you probably won't get the data you want. Unless, of course, you're working with highly motivated individuals who love data crunching and love filling in those types of forms. But my experience of working with people is that while there are those types of people in the world, the majority of people you work with won't be able to give you all the data that you want. So we're in a bit of a problem here, because we need data to be able to make decisions on our clients' behalf and tell them what the next step is, what's the next thing for them to do. But we don't have all the information because they haven't given it to us. So what's the solution here? Well, in this video, I'm going to run you through some of the processes that I use with my current clients, because I still coach a few physique clients, my business mentoring clients, and also my gym members, because I run certain programs in the gym which requires a group input. It's going to be slightly different if you run in a group or one-to-one program, so I'll go into that. And I'll give you some ideas about how you can make your check-ins a lot easier and get the data that you need so that you can coach people and get them the results they want so they stay with you for longer. And if you stay till the end, I've got a nice little process you can use in your content creation to make sure that this process isn't a waste of time and can give you more content to attract more of your perfect customers in. Now, what I want you to think about through the whole of this video is the fact that with check-ins especially, less is going to equal more. The less you give a client to do, the more likely they're going to be to actually do that thing and give you the data that you want. So make sure when you are asking people to give you stuff, it's actually stuff you really need. And I'm going to come on to that in a minute and what you can actually ask people. I've got 7 key points that apply to check-ins, and this has served me well through all of my coaching programs. And it's what I teach to my current mentoring clients so that they can get better check-ins for them. I've got a little PDF handout you can get which summarizes all this. So if you want to get it, just go into the comments. There'll be a link there to get it. So number 1, less questions. The amount of check-in forms that I've seen which have 10 to 15 questions that people have to fill in order to complete the check-in is mind-boggling. The boredom factor is something that you're going to really have to consider here, is how soon into doing the check-in form are your clients going to get bored with what they're doing? The key thing to remember here is that if you want clients to fill out stuff that requires more than, say, yes or no answers, you want to make sure you put that sort of stuff right at the beginning. Because if you don't, if you've asked them to fill out 10 different things which states their daily weight or their daily steps, or have they done this, have they done that, and they're going tick, 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 no, 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 whatever they get to the bottom, and they've had to write a few sentences already, as soon as you ask them for a long answer which requires more than a sentence, you're not going to get it, because they're going to be so tired of ticking boxes and writing stuff by then, they're probably going to give you a couple of words at most, and it won't answer the question. And the irony here is that the longer answers is what's going to give you the best information. So right now, if you've got a check-in form, go and look at it. If you've got over 10 questions, get rid of the ones you don't need. Do you really need to be knowing how many hours sleep they get? And that is quite a common question, which most people actually don't do anything with. So reduce those questions down. Under 5 is the amount of questions you want to be asking on your check-in form. The second key point is to make sure they have a freedom to check in whenever they want. There's a lot of coaches who say you must check in on a Friday afternoon between 10 and 12 or whenever time it is. And if you don't check in, I won't be answering your questions. The problem with this is that if you've got someone who is fairly busy, like most people are, and your check-in time is between this time or it's before a certain time, there's going to be some people you coach who are incredibly busy on that day and they won't get that thing done. And it's okay to say, oh yes, you must check in by Friday at say 12 p.m. But if you think about human nature, people always leave stuff to the last minute. You know, if you've got 10 days to finish a project, you're doing it on day 9, aren't you? You're not going to do it on day 1 and be a happy student. So consider having freedom for them to check in whenever they want to. Even go too far as to say, look, if you need to check in, here's the link to do it. Check in at any time and I'll get back to you within 48 hours. Believe me, this will de-stress your life a hell of a lot. The amount of coaches that I've worked with who have their check-ins on Friday afternoon and then they've got to spend their weekend doing the check-ins and making sure the diets are adjusted to go back to people is phenomenal. You're just making more stress and more work for yourself on the weekend. So the third thing to think about here is ease of access. Is your check-in process easy for the person to access? If it's anything more than a direct link that goes to something which they then have to fill in, it's going to be too long a process. And I know coaches like to have these apps which, you log in, do it all through the app. That's okay if people do use your app. If there is a process that takes more than, say, 30 seconds to go through to do their check-in, that's put another barrier in the way and they'll start to do it. And as soon as it starts loading and they can't see what they've got to do straight away, they'll look at something else. They're going to start surfing the internet or surfing social media, and then you've lost them. They won't come back to do that. So if you've got a check-in process, a direct link to go and fill in this form, here's the direct link, and then it's your under 5 questions, which takes under 5 minutes, that's going to get a response much faster and much more consistently than, log into the app, go to this bit, do this, do that, then you have to go here and fill this out, and then you have to email it to me. People just won't do that. And the other thing to think about is from your side here, if they've got to go into an app or something complicated to fill it in, and you've got to then log in yourself and go and look at all that data, how easy is it for you to go and look at that data? You want something which you can look at within about 10 seconds and determine if that person needs a call, an email, a message, or nothing at all. So make sure your check-in form or whatever you use is very easy to access. So number 4 is eliminate all the data. People do not like filling in forms where they have to look at numbers or they have to go somewhere else to get the number to come back in again. If you're asking on your check-in form, list your daily calorie intake for the last week. I can guarantee that people won't fill that in accurately because normally they've got to go back to an app or some other thing they filled in, get that data, and then come back into the form. And then you've probably got another question which talks about steps or something like that, and they've got to go to another app or another thing and then come back and put that data in. It's making the whole process massively drawn out. And this is from my own experience because I used to have a long check-in process with all the data on, and people just didn't fill it in. So what I advise the coaches I work with to do now is to have the data collection done during the week. So if they do have an app or Google Sheets or something like that, they fill it in daily and it takes about 30 seconds rather than trying to get them to do it on a Friday afternoon and spending 20 minutes to do that because they just won't do it. So that's number 4, keep all the data questions out. But don't worry, that doesn't mean your form has nothing on it. I'm going to run you through what I would recommend putting in a second. Number 5, not every single client needs a call that week. What I found is that in the first 8 weeks of working with somebody, this is the one-to-one aspect, in those first 8 weeks, that's when they're going to need the most effort, the most concentrated focus from you because they're learning your processes, they're learning how you work, they're learning things about themselves. So they probably are going to need some form of weekly check-in, maybe even a weekly call. When I used to run my 8-week body transformation programs, I would have a call every week with the client in the first 4 weeks, and then it would become every 2 weeks after that. Because once you've established those habits and knocked off all the initial low-hanging fruit so you can get into quick results in the first 4 weeks, it's generally maintaining and tweaking that every 2 weeks after that. It doesn't mean you can't have like WhatsApp or like a Facebook group or something for them to ask like quick questions, but you probably don't need a full check-in process every 2 weeks. And they probably won't have much to say every week after the first 4 weeks, because they should be into a nice little groove of doing the thing after 4 weeks. So don't require them to check in every week unless you absolutely need them to, because that's then going to put more work onto you as well. Number 6 is that need determines action. I used to waste a lot of time before I did this. And what I would find is that I would say to people, okay, let's book your next weekly check-in when I was talking to them. And that sounds nice and efficient, and let's book in your next call. But the problem is that every week we were having these calls, we would get on the call and I'd say, hey, great, tell me about your week. Oh, everything's fine. Okay, do we really need this call? No, not really. And then you'd probably spend about 10, 15 minutes just chatting about absolutely nothing, and which is good for rapport, I suppose, but it is a bit of a waste of your time and a waste of your client's time. Not every person is going to need the same amount of work from you. And you can determine who needs a call and who doesn't, and who needs a message and who doesn't, by using a very simple method of screening your check-ins, so that you can see who you do need to get on a call with and who doesn't need anything at all. Number 7, which leads on from number 6 a little bit, is you shouldn't justify your cost of coaching with the amount of calls people get. The amount of coaches that I work with, and I say, okay, tell me about your packages. And they say, oh, it's this much money and they get 2 calls a week. And it's this much money and they get 4 calls a week. And it's this much money and they get 6 calls a week or whatever. And the determining factor in the price of their coaching is the amount of calls that they give the clients per week. And the thing is that clients really don't care about how many calls they're going to get in a week. What they care about is getting results. And if you start selling your coaching on the basis of how many calls you're giving them per week, you're actually going back into the time for money equation, and that's going to put a ceiling on how many clients you can actually work with. So with all those 7 things in mind, what's the best check-in process to use? For the last couple of years, I've used this simple process. I asked just 3 questions. The first question is, what went well this week? The second question is, what didn't go so well this week? What are you still working on? And the third question is, what do you need my help with? Now, if you think about it, those 3 questions give you all the information you need to make the next decision. It tells you who's winning and maybe doesn't need anything at all, maybe just a pat on the back with a text or something. It tells you who's sort of struggling a little bit and could do with a little bit of a push from you. And it tells you who's really in the shit and needs your help because they're at risk of leaving your coaching because they're not getting any results. But it also tells you why. And that's the key thing. What are they struggling with? Why is it a problem? What do they need your help with? These are all things which allow you to make the decision about who to help first and what to do next. And the great thing about this process is it literally takes about 10 minutes. From your perspective as a coach, there's a number of ways you can send this out. You can send it out via a WhatsApp broadcast message, which is incidentally how I do mine. You can have an email that goes out once a week with the link onto a form. I'm not a big fan of that, to be honest, because if you're anything like me, I don't check my emails all that often. And when I do, there's a whole load of stuff I've got to deal with. So doing check-ins is probably not going to be my priority there. But by sending a WhatsApp message, that's going to go straight to their phone and you're more likely to get an immediate answer. Depending on where people are in their coaching, I often don't even send out a form for them to fill in because it's another bit of work for me to go and analyze that form. So I ask people just to send a message back on WhatsApp and then we can go from there. And you'll find that people are likely to do that. They'll be sat down with their phone. The message comes up. Okay, fine. I can spend 2 minutes doing that while I'm having a coffee. I don't need to log in anywhere. I don't need to go and fill out something else in some other app. I can just do it on my phone while I'm having a coffee or watching TV. And the cool thing about using a WhatsApp broadcast message is it's like a bulk email sender. It's not a group, so other people don't see everyone else's phone numbers. It's you sending a message which looks like a direct message out to them. Now, I'm not saying be dishonest here and pretend that you're sending a personal message from a WhatsApp broadcast, but it does mean that people will pick up the messages when they next check their phone, and you'll get their responses coming back intermittently through the day, and you decide when you can respond to them, and then they can decide when they respond back to you if you need to ask them another question. Now, I know what you might be thinking here. Okay, but how do we know about what their weight is, their steps, all that sort of stuff? Well, if you've got your system set up in your coaching and you've got, say, an app or a Google Sheet, and they filled all that stuff in through the week, when they send you a response back saying, oh, it's not so good, I've not really lost any weight, before you reply to them, all you need to do is just go and check their data on their sheets or in their app, look at it, and you can say, oh, I can see why you haven't lost weight because you haven't been in a calorie deficit this week or something like that. But it means that they don't have to fill in a whole load of data to send it to you, which you then have to analyze. You can pick up the problems and then look at their data to determine what the problem is. Now, of course, if they haven't filled in their Google Sheets or their app and you haven't got any data at all, that's still going to be an issue for you. There are people like that, unfortunately, and it's your job to weed all those sorts of people out at the interview stage, because if they're not giving you any data at all from any means, how can you coach them? But let's say they have given you something, at least you've got something to look at, and you can say, right, I can see the problem, it's this, let's try doing this. And that can be as quick as just sending a WhatsApp message back saying, I've looked at the data, this is what I think you should do, try that, and then get back to me in the next couple of days and see what the difference is. You don't need to have a call, you don't need to have a Loom message, you don't need to have any of that stuff. You can give them something actionable to do right there and then see what the result is a couple of days later. And that's what good coaching is all about. And from the client's perspective, it's not a big work for them. They don't have to sit down and read a long spiel from you or watch a long video of you telling them how rubbish they are. They've just got something they need to go off and do, and then they can come back to you and you can go from there. So I just want to go into some of the tools that I use for my own check-ins, because while it's nice to think that everything can be solved on WhatsApp, that's not always going to be the case. I use Loom quite a lot. Loom allows you to record a screen grab of stuff you're looking at. So it's really good if you're looking at, say, their data on the coaching app or their form that they filled in or anything else. And you can record it and say, look, here's where the problem is. Especially if you're looking at, say, before and after pictures or progress pictures, you can say, look, here's this. You can see the difference here. Here's where we need to work on. So it's quite quick. You can record yourself doing it. And what Loom does, it transcribes what you're saying so that when you send it out to them, they can see a quick summary of what you said. So they don't maybe have to watch the video. They can just read the transcript first. It's quite a neat little tool. And it's pretty cheap. I think it's about £10 a month, something like that. There is an AI upgraded version, which is about 13 quid a month, I think. It is worth the money, especially if you're going to do those sorts of things where you're looking at data and giving them feedback on their data. I've said I'll use WhatsApp before for quick discussion. WhatsApp is very good in terms of having broadcast lists, but you do need to be on the business option for that to happen. I believe the business option is free. I certainly don't think I've ever paid for it. I use mainly Zoom for video if we're having video conversations. Zoom is quite good in terms of people can get it on their phone and it's quite accessible to everybody. I think there is a free plan which gives you just 45 minutes. And if you're spending longer than 45 minutes on a check-in, there's probably something not right there. The cool thing about Zoom is you can share your screen and actually go through the data with them if you want to. I know there's other things like Teams and Google Meet as well. I've just used Zoom for like 6 years, so that's what I use. You can use a phone call if you want to be old-fashioned, just like me. I like to do a lot of my stuff on the phone if I can, because it's very quick to say, oh, do you know what? I think what we need is just a quick call. Have you got a minute? Phone them up, chat on the phone. Don't need a Zoom call, don't any of that. Don't need to spend any time going on a Loom video, recording that, which can be longer than 5 minutes. If you're looking at something, it's longer than a text message, but it's not enough to commit to a full Zoom call. Just get them on the phone and say, look, this is what I think you should do. What do you think? Yeah, okay, great. Let's do that. Send me a message when you've done it, and let's go from there. And if you're going to use forms to get your data off people, I probably wouldn't recommend it for the weekly check-in process. But if you are going to use forms, I generally use Typeform for most of my stuff. It has decent integration and things you can send off to your email system. You can send off to Google Sheets if you want to collect the data. You can use Google Forms as well if you want a free option. And Google Forms are really easy to use, and they also integrate into Google Sheets quite nicely if you want to collect that data. So I said at the beginning I was going to give you some content hacks about how to make this whole check-in process a little bit more beneficial, both for your client, but also from you from a content perspective, because we're all about making new content all the time, aren't we? So those 3 questions that I said to ask, remember the what's gone well, what hasn't gone so well, and what do you need help with? Those 3 questions, the responses you get, you can use for content in your weekly content output. And here's how you do it. So for the what went well question, what people have come back to you saying, oh, I've lost 10 kilos, I've been able to get into my jeans, I've gone out for meals without feeling guilty. All that stuff can be turned into like a mini quote or something which you can put onto Instagram or to Threads or whatever you want to. And you can talk about that result, that win they've got. And you can also relate that back to if you had an initial form they filled out when they came to your coaching, what their big problem was facing. If it relates to a direct solution to that, you can create a case study story about that. You don't have to show their face. You don't have to do anything like that. You can put their name if you want, if they're happy to do that. But you don't have to have like a before and after and everything else. Just sharing the quote, the feedback, the win that they've got on your social media allows you to write a longer post. You can even talk about it in a reel where you talk about this happened and this happened and this is the problem they were facing before. And this is how I coach and this is why they got this result. And for the what needs work questions, you can turn that into common issues that my clients face and talk about the solutions that you offer in your coaching and how you've solved this for people in the past. Maybe link it to some previous case studies, that sort of thing. So you can use that to link into maybe a call to action to join my coaching if you want to solve this problem. And the third one about what do you need from me, this is going to be the direct action that people want you to take to help them get over an obstacle or some problem they're facing. So that could potentially turn into a lead magnet or a quick tool for you to attract new clients. So say, for example, someone says to you, oh, I'm always snacking in the evening. I don't know what to do about snacking. And I know I use snacking in the evening, a common one, but it's something that I have experienced a lot with my clients in the past. So say someone says that to you, you could create a lead magnet around tips for not snacking in the evening, which would then address the main problems that your niche is facing and attract them into, okay, I need that because I'm someone who snacks in the evening a lot. And then you can start the discussion from there. That's just a few ideas. I know there are more, but that's what I've used in my coaching and I've advised my clients to do as well. I have put in the comments below a link to the PDF or the cheat sheet which summarizes this video. So go there, get it if you want to get it. If you're watching on YouTube, then this video here is something that YouTube thinks you might want to watch. So go and watch that. And I don't really do outros. So thanks for your time today. Hope that helped. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.